Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to this sales webinar on prospecting. So for those of you registered for today's live webinar, thank you for joining me. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. For those of you watching this on replay, you won't see all the questions, but you will see this entire presentation. So why did I decide to do a sales prospecting webinar? Well, I believe the prospecting piece of our sales process is the piece that is most broken today. And I think it is the one that our prospects and client are the least tolerant and open to today. Let me explain. When you go on to LinkedIn and you see a new connection that you don't recognize, and they offer to help you with your business with no context about your business and just saying that they have the greatest lead generation that has helped companies in your industry grow their business 200%, when we see that message over and over again, we become skeptical. When we get an inbox message from someone we don't know, and we know that they don't know us, it comes across as they're trying to sell us something, which we know people have to do, but there's a better way to do it. And then when we get that phone call from the number we don't recognize, most people are letting that go to voicemail. And so what's the talent that you have to get that person to call you back who's never heard from you before? And if I can transfer these simple behaviors on the prospecting front, it should open up your entire sales process to better conversations with the right people at the right time who you can truly help. So I want to talk about that today. So if you've been struggling with getting people to call you back or respond to your emails, I'm going to dive deep into the first anchor of my 5-anchor sales training program. And I'm going to give you that today. So it's going to be that first step that I want to share with you. So my training I call foundation training. So just like a house, if you don't have a strong foundation, everything falls apart. And from a sales perspective, that's all about your sales behavior. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that prospecting step 1 today. A little bit about me for those of you who've joined this webinar and have never heard of me before. How's that possible? No, I'm just teasing, more than possible. Let me give you a little bit of my background. So from a sales perspective, I've been there. I've been on the floor. So, I started working in a stock room at a Champ Sports and did everything to get on the sales floor. And then I started selling part-time. And then I became a full-time sales professional in retail. And then I grew my career to store manager at Champs and then moved to Ontario here in Canada and became the store manager of Athletes World Toronto Eaton Centre, which is the flagship mall for what was that banner at that time. And then I got recruited and moved over as an area manager for TELUS Mobility, so one of Canada's biggest wireless carriers. I was accountable for their corporate stores in Ontario and Manitoba, 13 of them. Then I was recruited into a company called Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment as a diehard Habs fan. I still went anyways. So for those of you who are sports fans, I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, but worked for the Toronto Maple Leafs for 5 years. I went in a retail mode as their director of consumer products. So I oversaw all of their merchandise program for Leafs, Raptors, Marlies, TFC, and the concerts in the arena, e-commerce, and their catalog program at the time. So ultimately accountable for every transaction that went through that building night after night, event after event, plus 24/7 on all the online portals. Working through Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, wanting to grow, I got a development opportunity where I became the general manager of BMO Field. So I opened the soccer stadium here in Toronto for Toronto FC back in 2007, I believe now. Ran the Ricoh Coliseum and was a senior director of what's known today as Scotiabank Place, but was Air Canada Centre at the time, the home of the Raptors, Leafs, and all those live events. Accountable for everything going on in those facilities, including sales of food and beverage, consumer products, etc. Then I moved over and was a vice president of sales and marketing for a company called the Printing House Canada that has 70 branches in Canada, printing company for business accounts. And then I went over to vice president sales, client service, and IT at Fusion Homes, one of Ontario's biggest home builders. And there, the transaction value went up even further. And then ultimately, as a president at Dunsire Developments in Burlington, Ontario. And then when the pandemic started, I shifted and opened my own business called Mark Pettipaw Business Coaching, which brings me to you today. For those of you, I know you're here for a sales webinar today, but for those of you who are interested in leadership training, I do that as well. Have a look. I'll share my information at the end. But I wrote a book called The 50-Year-Old Millennial, The Leadership Gap Exposed by the Millennials and How to Close It. And that's available on Amazon today. But enough about me. Let's help you today. So Zig Ziglar, everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people know who Zig Ziglar is. and some of his famous quotes. This one I love the best when it comes to sales. If people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. So I see great charismatic people who can get the attention of a customer, but can't close it into a transaction. Or when they're in a room and they've got a trusted, converted customer already, that customer engages, but the business doesn't grow. And that usually comes from a little bit of a lack of trust. So they may like you, but if they don't trust you, they won't do business with you. And the way you build trust is you demonstrate to people that you understand what's important to them, not to you. Yet we don't sell that way today. Our first call isn't about them. Our first call is about us and what we can do for them. So I thought that resonated. So let's talk about those 5 steps that I train. And I'm going to, again, nice big highlight here in yellow and writing in red. The first step of my 5-step foundation training process is researching and connecting. And the reason I decided to dive deep on today's webinar about that is, to me, it's the missing piece. Now, I've sold and I've consulted with sales organizations and I've built sales training in all those companies that I listed before, or most of them. And the biggest thing I see that's impacting sales professionals' ability to grow their compensation and succeed, and organizations to grow their business so they can scale and take it to the next level, is we haven't trained sales professionals on the behavior of researching and connecting with a prospect. That's why I want to dive deep on that today. If you wanted to get the whole training, I'll share that at the end. It's available online. I train groups, but I then go into, once you've got that connection, gathering needs, sharing ideas, differentiating, what I call a boomerang fact. So you really stand out. If someone's looking at other providers, they always come back to you based on that conversation. How do you gain commitment to have a sales meeting, discuss and clarify those detailed needs? How do you confirm that they're bought in and will move forward and build value while you do it? The best way to protect your clients and retain them is adding value when you transact them the first time. Because what will happen is someone else is inevitably going to come and go to a great training like this and come and try and steal your business. You have an opportunity when you close the first time to demonstrate the value that they are getting from you, that is either better than anywhere else or unique. So when someone comes with a lower price and you've demonstrated and communicated all that value, the chance the customer is going to leave you is drastically reduced. But a lot of sales professionals, again, they close the transaction, but they don't define the value of what the client's getting. And then lastly, I teach, what I call attempting to overcome objections, because if anyone's told you in a sales training that they're going to help you overcome all objections, hey, not to critique others, but I wouldn't listen to that sales training too long. Anyone who's been in the role knows we have all encountered objections, and you can't overcome them all. If I've got a BMW to sell you at $85,000 a year and you only have $19,000 and are set for a Hyundai, I can't overcome that objection. What I can do is attempt to overcome it. We can have the dialogue to validate what the objection is. We can have the dialogue for me to try and find a solution. But if I can't find that solution, we're also going to have the dialogue to part ways. If anyone's teaching you that they can help you overcome any objection, 2 risks there. 1, it's not realistic. The second risk is you might actually close the transaction and damage the relationship. And then that word will spread. So it's a short-term win for long-term pain. So those are the 5 steps. But again, today we're going to focus on researching and connecting. So when we approach a prospective customer on our first visit into their offices or them coming to us, but more likely on the phone or online, the first thing we need to do is establish some rapport. The first thing we need to establish some rapport is to connect with our client. Knowing them and a little bit about their business before reaching out is everything. Most sales professionals don't do this. And those who do, they don't do it well. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to share with you, but what I always try and do when I'm researching a prospect, if you've got CRM, great, put it in CRM, but I'm a little old school. I keep a piece of paper, and as I'm going through my prospects, I have 2 columns, okay? The left column is decision maker. The right column is company. And what I do is I do a little bit of research on the decision maker, and I'm going to teach you how to find that out and what's okay and what's not okay to bring up in a conversation. And then I do a little bit of a research on the company. And the reason I need those 2 columns is before I'm ever going to propose what we can do to help, I have to have that context. But most people call up and they say, hi, I'm Mark Pettipaw from Mark Pettipaw Business Coaching, and I do sales training and leadership training, and I also do servant leadership training, and I do strategic planning. And I can help your organization grow. So how much time do you have today to talk about my sales training? Now, here's the problem. That's not relative to the customer at all. And there's other people who've called the customer about sales training. It's happened. They may have it today. But when I do that research and I find I'm talking to the vice president of HR, and I find out a little bit about their background in skills and development, because I've researched it on LinkedIn as an example. And then I find out that the company's expanding from doing some research on the company, and they're big believers in workplace culture and retaining their employees as long as possible and equipping them to grow, because the company plans to grow twofold over the next 10 years, which is available in a corporate press release that I've researched. Now my conversation looks different. My conversation looks like, hello, Mr. or Mrs. VP of HR. I want to let you know why I'm calling today. I'm a business coach. I never would have picked up the phone if I didn't think I could help. So I did a little bit of research, and I hope you don't mind me asking, you landed that VP of HR role in Acme Widget Company today. Congratulations. But I saw an interesting path. You were in the sales world and then got shifted over to HR. Do you mind me asking about that? What was that change of direction? Oh, blah, 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 blah. And you get a little bit of an answer. And then I said, well, the reason I called today is I see Acme Widget Company wants to grow twofold over the next 10 years. And I loved what I read on your website about knowing that employees drive that growth and human behavior is everything. And you want to create a great work environment so people can succeed. My sales training focuses on 5 simple behaviors that will allow your organization to scale to do exactly that. I believe I may be able to assist you in that growth and create a great place to work. How much time do you have to talk today? Now that looks completely different than me picking up the phone and say, hi, I'm Mark Pettipaw Business Coaching. Do you want to buy my sales training, my leadership training, or my strategic planning? And here's what I do as I'm doing that research in those 2 columns. I don't call people. If I'm looking at an organization and they have 3 employees, and I learn that they're going out of business, or that they do all their sales are online e-commerce, why am I going to make that phone call? Because my product won't solve their need. So you get 2 things. You get to connect faster. You also get to reduce your prospect list. Now I'm still going through that prospect list, but as I research it, I save a call. That might get the generated automated email. That might get a simple normal voicemail. But the personalization is what really connects. So you got to do a little bit of that work. So how does that happen? I know I've explained that really easily. Well, one thing is the internet's a fabulous place. Here's what I would tell you as you're doing that research about individuals or company. If it is shared in a professional open forum, it is fair game to bring up. What you don't want to do is go to the decision makers Facebook page talking about being at the dance recital or the hockey game with their kids this weekend. That's too much. It's just too much. But you do want to find out about them through LinkedIn. You do want to see if they've posted any articles about the business online. You do want to see what's going on in their corporate social media accounts to find out about the business. Those are all things that are okay. So if in a LinkedIn profile, someone says, hey, you know what, worked at Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment for 2 years, that is very fair game for me to say, I see you were there from 2004 to 2009. How did we not cross paths? Or conversely, I see you were there from 2013 to 2018. We never worked together, but I see you're connected to so-and-so. I know that role. How's so-and-so doing? Oh, this is what and now that is open and connected, okay? And so that's one example. You might find something on their LinkedIn profile about their education. You both went to South Carolina. Go Gamecocks. I think South Carolina's Gamecocks. Go Auburn, go Tigers, whatever it may be. And you'll find things in there to connect with the individual. It may be about the role. It may be that they're a manager of HR and you've been a manager in HR in your past. Or they've been an executive recruiter and you've been an executive recruiter. They've been in sales and you're in sales in that industry. So pick out 1 to 3 things that you can connect with and write those down. And approach it the same way I did. Listen, before I ever picked up the phone to call you, I wanted to make sure we were potentially a fit. And as I was doing that research, I saw this. Tell me about, you went to Auburn? So did I. and make a personal connection, but then you got to quickly go to the professional connection. And the reason I'm calling is I think it can help you with your growth plans. I saw that you guys are entering a new market, and our service is national in scope, and we can transfer your files digitally and not have to print it here in Toronto. And I can get it to you in Saskatchewan within, sorry, Saskatchewan, bad example of this past employer. I can get it to you in Vancouver literally the same day and no shipping costs because I got a branch there. We're going to print it there. So you give me your file here in Toronto, we'll print it there, and I'm going to save you costs as you expand with your restaurants into the West Coast. And those are examples that you want to bring up so your approach is relative to that client. Now, people say, well, what does that look like when I leave a voicemail? Exactly what I just said. One personal thing, one professional thing about how you can get their business, and leave a voicemail that says, I'm going to follow up on this date. Let me know if you want to talk earlier. So again, reference the individual, reference the company. You can do it via Google, is where I always start. Put the person's name in, put the company name in, see what comes up. You'll find articles. You'll find stories on websites. You'll find personal profiles on LinkedIn. You'll find corporate profiles on social media. Those are all open. Write your list of 3 things for the individual. You may only have one. Hit that one home if it's a great one. Find your 1 to 3 things. Be careful with LinkedIn so you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Just because someone's connected to them doesn't mean they know them. Okay, so if you want to make sure before you call them, and you know the one person in common already, call them first and say, hey, Mark, see you're connected with Gina here on LinkedIn. How well do you know her? Oh, I don't know her at all. Actually, we just connected because of a conference. Okay, great, thanks. Or I know her really well. I worked with her for 2 years. Want me to make an introduction? And you might get even further value, but do that research so you can connect before you pick up the phone. The next thing I always talk about is, what's your first question going to be? And your first question should be a non-selling related question. Okay, in my decks here, I talk about the defaults, right? So you can ask about the weather, you can ask about the traffic, you can ask about their location, you can ask about their business initiatives, their promotions, because it's not you selling your stuff yet. It's asking an open-ended question to them. And the goal is just to create dialogue. And an open-ended question means it can answer with yes or no. So instead of saying, how did your grand opening go did your grand opening go well this weekend? Yes or no? Tell me, how was the grand opening this weekend in Sault Ste. Marie? That's an open-ended question where it's going to force them to speak and engage. Listen attentively, put yourself in their shoes. Leverage that. Sorry, I've got a little note in here from a past seminar. Get the customer saying yes to gain their commitment is the third one. Okay, so what do we do to get people excited? Well, we ask open-ended questions to get commitment that will allow you to dive deeper and more targeted. So as an example, Susie, I'm really excited about a service we can provide that would really fit your business initiative. Now I'm going to demonstrate that from the research. How? So I would say, Susie, seeing that you're expanding on the West Coast and we have locations there today, our footprint is the biggest in Canada. I'm going to be able to save you time and money by getting your digital file in Toronto, shipping it to my branch in Vancouver for your grand opening. I'm going to save you all that money in shipping your large format. I'm going to allow you quick corrections, and you get to control it from a marketing perspective in Toronto while we print it for your location in Vancouver. How much time do you have to talk about that today? Okay, and that's the way we get the customer saying yes to the commitment. Leave an open-ended question, demonstrate that we can provide some value, and ask them how much time they have to talk. Now, what you will get is some customers will say, I don't have any time to talk today. Hey, that's fair. I didn't want to interrupt you. When would be an appropriate time to talk? And you always leave it open-ended so they have to commit. Okay. So what I'm going to leave you before we get to the end of this 30-minute seminar right now. I'm doing this pretty quick. This first step usually takes about an hour and a half in my training programs, but I'm going to leave you with the exercises that I think will help all this stick for you when you leave this seminar today. So here's the first exercise you want to do. Write down all the ways you can find out about a prospect's business and the prospect themselves. Keep a note, keep a list. Those are going to be your go-tos, right? Whenever you're trying to find someone, hey, Google, hey, LinkedIn, hey, corporate social media, hey, their corporate website, have a list and a reservoir of places to go, industry associations, et cetera, so you can find out about prospects. Write those down, save them for that day you start prospecting. The second step is have those open-ended questions that you can ask that are non-selling related ready to go. Have your default questions ready. Try and make them prospect specific if you can. But if you can't make them prospect specific, have some default questions that say, that are non-selling related for you. So it could be, how's the business growing today? How does that penetration into the West Coast looking for you? Oh, I see that you're really green friendly. How are you doing that with your logistics services? All open-ended about them. Now, this is the big one that I want you to take away. This one will help you immediately before you pick up the phone. And I want you to see the difference. So right now, take 3 of your prospects. Okay, someone you're trying to get business with today. Someone that's new. You've never met them before, but they're on your list. And I want you to write down what you know about them. Don't cheat, just write down what you know about them. Then I want you to do the same exercise and practice these steps that I've mentioned above. Go research, go find out about the decision maker, go find the decision maker, go find out about the company, find out what the company values that you can communicate, that you can help with. Start to do your list of decision maker 3 things, company 3 things, and how you can help. Put those things together and compare your 2 lists. What did you know about the prospects? What do you know about them now? And what are you going to talk to them about? The difference will literally blow your mind. Okay, one thing I want to leave you with as you're doing this is the value equation. We tend to sell too much on price and our offering. So here I am, I'm Mark Pettipa, I do business coaching, I'm X per hour, and here's my 4 training groups. Okay, that means nothing to me if I'm a prospect and I've never met you before. What I need to figure out is your value equation and how I can service it. So the value equation is quality and service over price. I need to figure out what you value. So what does quality look like? What does service look like? That's important to you before I ever speak to price. But I need to know that as I prepare for the call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that research. And when I'm finding those 1 to 3 things out about your company, and I dive deeper in the conversations in step 2, 3, 4, and 5, we really use this value equation. I'm going to keep notes and I'm going to align them with just a little Q or an S. And then what I like to do is put something aside it where we can prove we can deliver. Let me give you an example. Let's talk about service. So I worked with a logistics company, and one of the biggest things that logistics company, the biggest pressures they have is being on time. Because when they're not on time, that creates delays for their customers. It creates delays in getting their product to market. It creates labor impacts by having people standing around waiting for a shipment in the distribution center. And so service is everything in that world. Like, it's really important that the product's on time and that you manage that whole journey of going from distribution center to distribution center. And so when researching that and finding that out about, this organization on their website believes in just-in-time inventory. They are one of the highest volume retailers in North America. They move X amount of product per year. All of those things are going to tell you that service is important. So when I communicate with them and I say, I was on your website and I see how valuable a good service provider in logistics would be to you. I had no idea you did X amount of transactions per year. I mean, that is phenomenal. I didn't even know you had that many distribution centers. That's incredible. And I would imagine, please share with me, how important is it that the shipment is there on time and you have staff at the right time to not overstaff and get behind on your production schedule? Well, Mark, it's really important. Well, I'm glad you shared that because we have a technology that will allow you to know where our shipment is within 8 meters at all times. So if we're running drastically behind, coming from Toronto to Montreal, you're going to know and you can schedule accordingly. Most importantly, from a service perspective, you call me. You find out what's going on with my shipment. It's sitting on the side of the road in Kingston. Or conversely, if everything's trending properly and you want to take staff breaks and you want to schedule them before the shipment arrives, you'll know that there's 28 minutes till the shipment arrives. There's an example of one of the things that we do differently that's a technology that's ours and no one else's that I think would really help with your growth. Now, there's an example of finding out what they value simply from looking at their website. The further you go down the sales transaction, the more clear this becomes, right? The prospecting, connecting, and research is just to get them on the phone. And so you got to stand out by knowing a little bit about their business and demonstrating how you can help to get their attention. But as you ask questions through the next 4 steps in my process, you're keeping great notes here when it comes time to close to demonstrate the quality and service that they're getting for the price they're going to pay with you that wins the value game over your competitors. People will pay more if they determine they're getting more from you than they will from other providers. And if you don't communicate that way, they're going to shop on price. And price isn't always the best thing to shop on. So I am going from researching and prospecting in here to step 2 and gathering needs. But today was really just about helping you to break through. So research 1 to 3 things on the decision maker. Research 1 to 3 things on the customer. Keep notes about how you can help them with those initiatives. So when they confirm that in your conversation and you've asked non-selling related questions and you've got an opportunity to demonstrate what you've researched, you align it to how you can service those needs. That should get you into a position where you can say, how much more time do you have to talk today? So we can dive a little deeper, or that should get you into a position to say, when would you like to set up a meeting? I can do it on Zoom, or I can come to your office, or you can come to me. Is there enough there to interest you? That is the critical piece, the first piece that I train of 5 that is lacking in the sales world today. That is the piece that will allow you to stand out. Most importantly, it shows your prospect that you respect them and you've done a little work. No one's doing this. And for those who are doing it, they're not doing it well. That will differentiate you from the pack. Okay, so you want to learn a little bit more? You can go and find on Udemy, the expert salesperson. Udemy, maybe it's Udemy, I'm not sure, but I'm on there. And the course is called the expert salesperson. Just search for it. This is the link. You can also get straight to my training off of Udemy, and go straight to my training portal on Podia. And that's simple. My full name, Mark Petitpas, MarkPetitpas.podia.com. There is the link. So when you go to podia.com, you'll end up on my page. You'll see at the top the menu of the different training courses that I provide. Go to the sales and prospecting course. And if you've got a corporate group and you've liked what you've heard today and you want me to come in and work with your sales team, I do live in-person training, or I can do it virtually as well, whichever makes your workforce more comfortable. Okay, we'll move to questions and answers now. For those of you who did not sit live on this webinar, this is the end for you. Thank you for joining us.